good time. You're welcome. Good evening. I'd like to call Bonita Springs Fire Control and Rescue District monthly meeting, March 9th, 2015, to order. Please stand for a moment of silence and invocation from Reverend Chetwood, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We want to have a moment of silence for 3 firemen that have lost their lives this past year, and just make special mention of one that was fairly close in the South Trail District, Daniel Diabatero passed away, and remember their family in our prayers. Dear God, we come to you tonight and we just ask for your blessing and your guidance and watch over the families of those that have lost a loved one in this past month. Lord, the Diabato family, we pray that you might bless them with your strength and your comfort. Lord, we always say pray for protection of our firefighters and the duty they perform. I pray that you'll watch over them, give them safety, protect them from harm, be with their families and guard them and protect them. Thank you for those that give themselves and their lives to service for others. Pray that their blessings to others may be a sign of the blessing that you also share with all of us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda this evening is approval of the regular board minutes from February 9th, 2015. May I have a motion?
I so move.
I second
All in favor?
it.
Aye. One motion for the financials for the February 2015 and current expenditures, the acknowledgement of February 2015 financial report, and the acknowledgement of wire transfers and transfers between accounts. I need a motion, please.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item is a motion that we're needing a public input. I'm going to have Lisa explain a little bit about it.
I'll begin, if you don't mind, sir.
Okay.
Basically, what this motion is throughout trying to update our radio communication system in the Bonita Springs area, we have created a fund in which we give the opportunity of some businesses to either put an in-house repeater system basically in their business, or under the state statute or in the current code, they are allowed to pay us an amount of money in which we will provide that particular service through the usage of mobile repeaters. I know that's a little bit technical, but what we're asking for is, since the time we began this, we have collected about $67,000 from some businesses in the community. And by the end of 2015, the fund should total at least $84,000. Now, we did not budget this money because we weren't sure how much we're going to take in, so this is not part of the budget. However, the process of upgrading our ability to communicate in the buildings is moving a little faster than anticipated, which we're glad with, which we're happy about. So the request is that we do a budget transfer from our machinery and equipment reserves to pay for the new radio systems for our new engine 22 and also engine 23, and purchase a mobile repeater system with the money that's transferred. However, during the next budget year, we will replenish that reserves with the money we have already collected. So, for example, we've collected $67,000. We're asking so far for the funds from from the businesses. We're asking to transfer $23,000 from reserve, at which time next budget year, we will replenish with the money we have collected for our services. Is there any questions about that?
Need a motion to accept that?
Make a motion to accept that transfer.
I'll second. Any public input? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. Can we get a roll call vote, please? Sir?
Commissioner Casella?
Aye.
Commissioner Forbes?
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy?
Aye.
Commissioner McCourt?
Aye.
And I'm aye also.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next item, we have, these are our favorite things to do. We have some presentations this evening.
Deputy Chief Richard Scott will be performing the duties.
Good afternoon, everyone. So again, it is my honor and privilege to present another Phoenix Award. And hopefully these continue and we can do these every month. The Phoenix Award, for those of you who haven't attended one of these before, is the most prestigious award that we give out here at the fire department. And we started to do this back in 1999 when we adopted our advanced life support treatment. And it is named after the mythical bird that rises again from the ashes once it is deceased. So that's thus the name, the Phoenix Award. So it is given to medical providers, like some of the people in our audience tonight that will be giving the award to, that provide excellent treatment and results in saving of a life. It's giving to a call that they respond to a person that has stopped breathing and has no heartbeat. And because of the actions of those individuals, that person, in this case tonight, is here and alive and well and sitting in our audience. So tonight is a rare privilege that not only we're giving the award to the emergency responders, but also a bystander that initiated chest compressions. And of course, we have the person that was the receiver of all this excellent care, and he's here as well. On January 8th, in front of his residence, Mr. Wynn, who's here with us tonight, had a cardiac event, and he fell to the ground. His wife was with him. I spent some time with him today, so I feel a little more comfortable discussing the call, with their permission. His wife called 911, and the bystander that's also here, Mrs. Sowden, who's sitting right here in the audience next to him, who's an emergency room nurse, initiated chest compressions and CPR. 911 again was called, Rescue 21 and Engine 21 responded, and from the time they received the call, they were on scene in under 5 minutes. Once they arrived on scene, they assessed the patient with a cardiac monitor. They found him to be in a shockable rhythm, ventricular fibrillation, and delivered a shock, which restored another heartbeat that did produce a pulse. And then they did an interosseous needle and give him some amiodarone, which is a medication that is meant to calm the heart down because it went through this traumatic series of different rhythms. And then rode to the hospital. One of our firefighters rode to the hospital with him, and again, he walked out of the hospital, and he's right here in the audience with us tonight. So, I'd like to introduce these people that I've been talking about. The first one, of course, that receives the most attention, I think, tonight should be Mrs. Ann Sowden, because she's the one that is not employed to do this. Mrs. Sowden, come on up to the front, please. Our next Phoenix recipient is Lieutenant Paramedic Jim Lamb. This is his 6th Phoenix Award. Firefighter Paramedic Roy Brown. It's his 1st Phoenix Award. Lieutenant Paramedic Eric Madden, his 5th. I don't believe he's on a call. I don't believe he's back yet. The other engine crew isn't quite here yet. Is he here? All right, perfect timing. Lieutenant Madden. Firefighter Paramedic Nick Arakia, his 1st Phoenix Award. Firefighter Paramedic Zach Lindgren, I believe is 3rd or 4th? 4th? 3rd Phoenix. And Firefighter EMT Alex Wright, his 1st Phoenix Award. All right, we forgot one last person. Mr. Jim Wynn, standing in the front, that received all that care from all these fine individuals. I did just want to mention one more thing. This afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Wynn are trying to initiate the purchase of AEDs in their condo association in the buildings they live in, because early defibrillation actually saved Mr. Wynn's life. So myself and Natalie Hughes went over and attended a board meeting today. So I just wanted to give him more props for trying to initiate that and get it in his building. So hopefully they can save another life if this presents itself again. Thank you.
Just, I'm always proud when the men of this organization do such a fine job, and I'm glad we could be there for you and your family, and we certainly are very thankful for you being a part of our community. Next on the list, I would like to ask Lieutenant James Lamb, I'm sorry, I apologize, moving on to the annual service pins. They already got their awards. So. Fire Marshal Tim Fernandez, 20 years of service here with Bonita Springs. I did want to mention that Fire Marshal Fernandez is really an expert at what he does and top-notch in the county. And that's 20 years with Bonita, and I believe, Tim, what's 35 in the fire service? Over 35 years. 35 years in the fire service. Next, I would like to present Commissioner Larry Casilla for the hardest, first year. Yeah. Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations again to all. Anybody that doesn't want to stay for the rest of the meeting now, I know a lot of times after the awards, some people leave. If you, we'll give you a minute to go. You're more than welcome to stay, but thank you very much. There you go. Next order of business is old business, and I have something under old business that we left kind of hanging in the balance at last meeting with a request from Mr. Pure to do an investigation or file a complaint with the divisions of elections, and we have at that time said that we would give that to our council, and on advice of council, the district has no authority or jurisdiction over division investigations of election law complaints. The district board is an apolitical public body and is not appropriate to request or demand investigation of election law violations. There's full copies of the letters and emails, but that's the summary of our attorney's report. So I believe that we tabled a motion last month, and according to our counsel, we should dismiss that motion.
Duly noted, sir.
Anybody else for old business? New business? Anybody got any new business? Then we'll go to the chief's report. Chief Daigle.
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, first I'd like to recognize Chairman Lohan for his appointment to the FASD Board of Legislative Committee for Florida Association of Special Districts. Congratulations, sir. And,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
The next item I have is I wanted to inform the board that the State Fires Marshal's Office, a division of the State Fires Marshal Office, Director Julius Hallis, along with Jeff Atwater, will be had added some new guidelines for the fire district and all fire departments in Florida. It's under 69A, 62. It's a compliance inspection. Just some of the items that the district will be required to fulfill is the records of initial fit for duty tests for all firefighters in SCBA. So they have to have a medical exam of a doctor that clears them for firefighters' duties. Annual fit test records for employees. Self-contained breathing apparatus inspection procedures. Copy of service agreements or factory trained certifications for our SCBA repairs, contract services for breathing apparatus, contract for breathing air. These are just a few. We have to provide them with a training calendar that shows training for the whole year, what documents are available, minutes from a safety meeting, just to give you an idea here. The district will be required to have a hazardous materials emergency response plan. An incident safety officer is required on all working alarms. The fire department has adequate decontamination procedures for such. We have appropriate Mayday protocol that the fire district requires a 2-in, 2-out on potential immediate dangerous to life hazards, which means anything that's immediately dangerous to life hazards, you have to have 4 people on. If you're going to send 2 people into that situation, you have to have 2 on the outside. These are all state mandates, and we abide by them now, but it's just now that the Fire Marshal's Office will be coming around to inspect to make sure that all fire departments are following these laws. Next on the list I would like to talk about golf course mapping. Here in Bonita Springs, as most people know, we have a large golfing community. What we have done in conjunction with Lee County Dispatch is we have submitted all of our golf course plans to the emergency dispatch. So I just wanted, as a public service announcement, announce that if you're on the golf course playing golf and you have an emergency incident, the first thing you do is you dial 911 and stay put and do what they ask you to do on the phone, which any kind of emergency procedures. We will find you. We will get there. We have mapping procedures, and we've already pre-planned all of our golf courses in each hole in each community to show exactly the quickest way to get to every hole, every green, and every fairway, which I have a hard time finding myself when I'm out there. But just rest assured we're prepared for that, and I just thought it was a very good unified effort between Lee County Dispatch and all the fire districts, including us in the county. I also wanted to ask the board if they had an opportunity to review the annual report, and if so, yes, sir.
Before we move off of the golf course, we had an incident over at Pelican Nest. And I was wondering, is there a way we can communicate to the membership of all the golfers or to the golf course general managers that we have this procedure in effect, and to inform their members that they should call the 911, stay in one place? Is there some way we can communicate that?
We'll work on that, sir. I think that's a very, very, very good good idea to get the word out.
Yeah, thank you.
And contact these individual, golf course communities. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Chief
Go ahead, Frank.
and Commissioner. I know that Lee County Emergency Operations Center has made a bunch of flyers, and they've made posters. And they're supposed to be in each one of the clubhouses around.
They are, at several of the clubhouses they are,
Yeah.
but unfortunately,
Right.
I think even some of the clubs have actually posted them in the golf carts, but
All right.
unfortunately, a lot of things that are posted, people at the time don't pay attention to.
Right.
And there's been a couple of incidents that I've been involved in personally that didn't have happy endings because, and maybe they wouldn't have anyway,
Mhm.
but some things were done incorrectly. So I think Commissioner Murphy's point about getting into these clubhouses and meeting, whether it be at the annual meeting or whether it be just a 2-minute infomercial somehow, that how the difference of throwing somebody on a golf cart and driving them back to the clubhouse can be very detrimental to a patient. And like Commissioner Murphy said, we had one that very recently that did not end well, but whether or not it would have,
Right.
I do think that it's a huge part of our responsibility to hammer it home to people at golf clubs. If somebody has an incident on a golf course, like you said, stay there. Everybody carries a cell phone, call 911, and don't try to bring the person to help, let help come to you. And I think to go to maybe set up at annual meetings of the golf clubs, they're always advertised, there's plenty of time, and I'm fairly sure that if we spent 5 minutes having somebody from the department just emphasize that when you have usually 200 or 300 people in the room, it may do a lot more good than posting some signs.
Well, I think we can
Chairman?
form. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. I'm missing something here. If I'm on the golf course and I call 911 and tell you the golf course I'm on, how do you know what hole I'm at?
You have to have somebody say what hole you're on.
So when they call in, they should not only give the golf course, but they should give the location on the golf.
They will ask you all those questions.
They'll normally ask you
Yeah,
that.
they have
Okay, all
they
right.
have the same thing with medical priority dispatching. They have a list of questions that they will ask you, say, where's your location? I'm on the golf course in Bonita Bay,
Okay, all
or
right.
Pelican Landing, at what hole? Yes, sir.
And we have the same situation on the beach, I assume, that you have to identify where you're at on the beach. And I believe that most of our firefighters know where the beach accesses are. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes,
'Cause I
sir.
know we had a situation there, it wasn't last year, but maybe the year before,
Mhm.
where the 911 operator asked her for the address. And she says, I don't know what the address is. I'm on the beach, Well, what
Right.
access are you in there? Or she told him access, and the operator asked her for the address of the access. Well, we don't have an address for the access. So I assume that most of our people know where that is, so.
Yes, sir. A lot of times those addresses are, the reason why they're so adamant about getting the address is because when they punch it in, that's what brings up the mapping system on the trucks. So it'll show them, even though they know directly where it is,
Mhm.
when they pull it up, they want to put it in so it shows a line to get to the specific address. That's,
We've done a much better job of marking the accesses on both sides, so people on the beach can tell what access they're at, which is important, but I thought that was pretty, I don't know what situation, we never did follow up to find out what the problem was, but whoever that 911 operator is obviously dropped the ball there and asking for the address of the access, so,
yes, sir.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Finished.
I just wanted to ask the board if everyone had an opportunity to look at the annual report. We did place it on the website, but if there were any comments, we could still revise it. We haven't printed a bunch of copies, but we wanted to get any input from, I'd like to get any input from the board, if possible.
Chief, I've been a little occupied lately, and I haven't taken a look at it yet. If I could revisit it next month?
Yes, sir.
First, or in the meantime, I'll come back to you if I see things that I
Yes, sir.
notice. Thank you.
I just want to say I thought it was very well done. Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
And I too, unfortunately, have not had a chance to look at it, and I think I'll probably have some comments, so I'll get back to you.
Yes, sir.
I did look at it, and I thought everybody did a good job.
Thank you. I'd like to, I would love to take all the credit for it, but the staff did a fantastic job, in my estimation, of putting it together. All the divisions, they come together. I always say, like, I'm like the coach, and they go out and play the game. So they put the information together and wrapped it up in this nice package, and I just appreciate their work for that. Thank you. I would like to mention that we did go up to Appleton, Wisconsin to look at the new truck. It was cold. They had a heat wave. It was 22 degrees as a high, 17 as a low. It was a working trip. I think we got in late and spent all day at the factory and checked all the trucks out. And I wanted to thank Assistant Chief DeWitt, Chairman Lohan, and Vice Chairman Casilla for their. It was a good experience, and we learned a lot. And the truck looks fantastic. And we should be taking. When are we taking?
We were never buying another truck in the wintertime.
Actually, okay, we'll take that under advisement, sir. The actual truck is being picked up on the 10th, and it'll take 2 days to get here. Then it will spend probably roughly 2 weeks in Bradenton getting some, as they call it, loose equipment on the truck. Then after that, it should be down here. So hopefully we do the ceremony, and it'll be at our next board meeting. That's the plan right now.
Okay, I'd also like to mention, I think I have it down here. We didn't do this in presentations. This was given to me, I believe it was today, from PFC Paul E. Eason from the Marine Corps League. In appreciation of your support of the 2014 Toys for Tots campaign is presented to the Bonita Springs Fire District. We do some work, and Iris has handled most of this every year. She does a fantastic job. But we couldn't do it without the help of our CERT members. They're heavily involved with it, and I mean, they just take the ball and run with it, and they help out a lot of kids. And I just wanted to say that the Marine Corps League has recognized our district for what we do for the kids. So, lastly, I don't know if the board received my email today, but I'm a little disappointed to announce that the court has denied our petition for certiorari. That's for our transport. And Council Maggie Mooney Portali has advised me of this today, and I sent you the information via email as soon as I found out. Right now, we have not had the opportunity to go over this. This was a matter of a few hours ago. Once we go over it and review what had happened, we'll fully address the board and see where the board would like to move from this particular point.
That would have to be done in a shade meeting.
Yes, sir. I just received a text from her a few minutes ago. We would probably like to schedule a shade meeting tonight, probably within the next, I would say.
2 weeks.
Next 2 weeks, yes, sir. Did you get the same text?
No, I actually talked to Maggie this afternoon.
Yes, sir. So before the end of the evening, if we would like to schedule that, that would be paramount. And that is all I have, gentlemen.
Thank you. Assistant Chief DeWitt.
Good evening. I just have one thing. On Saturday, excuse me, Saturday, Deputy Chief Giuliano and myself attended a gala down in Naples at the Naples Grand. It's called Foundation for the Developmentally Disabled. If you guys remember, last year we had presented a firefighter for the day for that, and we had sold it and auctioned it off and got, I think it was roughly $5,000 last year for it. And so this year they invited us back to do it again. So Deputy Chief Giuliano and myself went down there, and we went a little bit out of the norm. We were approached as the auction was going on to ask if we would split it, and we said we would. We'd do it twice. And the next thing that was asked of us, could we do it for children and or the developmentally disabled? So they'd come down here, the people who actually benefit from this auction, if we could bring them here and show them how the fire department works and spend 3 or 4 or 5 hours with them. Deputy Chief Giuliano and myself talked about it and said, sure, why not? We can branch out a little bit and go a little bit outside the norm. So we decided to do that, and we got about $3,000 for the charity this year by doing this. So our first one, we're tentatively scheduled for April 17th. It's a Friday for fourth graders. They're going to come here and spend the afternoon with us, and we're going to do it as like a little birthday party and have some cake for them. They're going to supply the cake, but we're going to show them what it's like to be a firefighter and kind of teach them what it's like and to stay in school and what their charity goes for. So that's what our event was about.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Giuliano.
Good evening, everybody. I've got a couple of calls here I want to talk about. The first one is a water flow alarm that came in at Spanish Wells Clubhouse. Our mobile data computer stated that there was no active fire, so the battalion chief had engine 21 and truck 25 as the only responding units, and all others were canceled. On arrival, they found that there was an employee who was working in the utility closet, and he was spraying that Flex Seal you see on TV. And he was in a little closet, and I don't know what he was doing, but it exploded in his face. He got 2nd and 3rd degree burns all over his neck, arm, face, chest, and the sprinkler went off inside the closet, put the fire out. There was a lot of damage done by the suppression system. The water leaked down in the ceiling onto the floor below and damaged office equipment and storage and things like that. It's a little different and unusual in the fact that the call came in to us as a water flow alarm, and then the people at the clubhouse had called and said that it wasn't a fire at all, don't worry about it. So they passed that on to us, and when we got there, they said, oh, we had a fire and we have a patient. So we didn't know any of that when we got there. So that's just typical of what happens sometimes when we got to be ready for anything, because we never know what's going to happen. The people downstairs didn't know that there was a fire upstairs, and they typically get a false alarm and they'll say, well, that's nothing. Call up the, tell them, call off the dogs. And then when it started leaking through the ceiling, they said, well, we got a problem. It wasn't until our guys got there that we found we had a patient. So it all worked out okay. Our next call was multiple gunshot wounds. You might have seen this one on TV. Our crews were called out to an active shooter situation with Lee County SO. The patient was shot multiple times. Engine 24 arrived in the area and was directed by deputies to the residence. On arrival, they found the patient lying supine with his hands cuffed behind his back. He was being attended by several deputies. There were multiple bullet holes in the surrounding area and a lot of broken glass. The patient was bleeding from multiple wounds. Deputies had towels in place holding pressure to control the bleeding. Exam found the patient unconscious and he only aroused during exposure and the exam. He was not alert to time or place. Found an open wound on the back of his head, but were unable to determine the cause of that wound, whether it was a gunshot wound or if it was from falling. The neck was clear, gunshot wound to the left shoulder, right wrist, and left buttock. The wound to the left shoulder was open and had moderate bleeding. The right wrist was a through-and-through wound with severe damage to soft tissue and the radius and the ulna, the two bones in your arm here. Left buttocks was an open wound with little bleeding. Treatment. Patient was completely exposed. Assessment was done. Bleeding was controlled, and patient was packaged on a long spine board. Patient had to be unhandcuffed for assessment and packaging. Patient was loaded and wheeled into Medic 6, who transported to Station 24 for patient transfer to Lee Flight. They land their helicopters out here. They went to Lee Memorial Trauma Center. Nowadays, the firefighters, we have to adjust our procedures that concerns active shooter incidents. We're having more and more across the country, these active shooter incidents. In the past, what we would do, we would stand by in the area and wait until SO said, or the law enforcement agency said, it's clear and you can come in. Well, that don't work in some of these multiple incidents and active shooters where you have a hot, warm, and a cold zone. We would usually wait in the cold zone. Nowadays, we're training to go into the warm zone with a police escort, basically. With the hunter killer teams, they're like if there's in a school or something like that, like you've all seen, we'd go in with them and we'd have to take care of the patients as we go. Or we may have to do fire suppression. A lot of times nowadays they'll start a fire, start killing people. We get there, we can't, we got to get there and put the fire out. The chief has a great story about one of the calls like that he went on years ago where some satanic guy killed his girlfriend and lit his house on fire. Well, those things happen in this community even. People would be surprised. So anyway, that's what happened. I think that guy passed away, I'm not sure. Okay, then the last one was, the next one. There was a 21-year-old overdose, came in as a cardiac arrest. Patient was found unconscious and unresponsive. The patient was riding in the car with his girlfriend, and she reported to us that he shot up some heroin and passed out. And she thought he died. And the guys got there, a bystander was doing CPR. His girlfriend stated the patient had been using heroin for 5 years. That's pretty bad. He's only 21 years old. Upon our arrival, patient was on the ground and chest compressions were being performed on him. He was found with a steady pulse, breathing about 12 to 14 breaths per minute. We were on the side of the highway, so they put the patient in Medic 13 and they established an IV. They gave him 1 milligram of Narcan, used a slow IV, pushed and flushed it. Patient regained full consciousness within a minute. Transport decisions were made in Naples community since the other hospitals are on the vert. That's Bonita. A lot of people that live here don't know we have a heroin problem in Bonita. We do. We got all kinds of things in Bonita. The one thing about being a firefighter is you're in people's homes and all different ways, and we see a lot of different things that people would just curl your hair. Last thing here we're talking about is, at each board meeting we have a moment of silence, like today, for firefighters killed in the line of duty during the past month. We know about Danielle, but this is a different case. I thought I'd read about how it happened. And this is a line of duty death from Connecticut, and I'll read from the Hartford Courant. The Office of the Chief State Medical Examiner ruled Thursday that Hartford firefighter Kevin Bell died because his tank ran out of air while he was fighting a house fire on Blue Hills Avenue. Medical examiner James Gill has ruled Bell's death an accident. Death certificate states that Bell's self-contained breathing apparatus ran out of air while he was fighting the fire. Firefighter James Martinez was also badly burned in the fire and leapt from a second floor window to escape the flames. Bell, 41 years old, a 6-year veteran of the department, was assigned to Engine 16. He was in the house less than 12 minutes when another member of the department called a mayday. When it was discovered that Bell was missing, a team from Tactical Unit 1 was sent back into the burning house, and they found him in less than 30 seconds. Bell was found in their room on the second floor to the right of the staircase. Bell was responsible for carrying a hose up to the second floor and putting water on the fire. In the aftermath of his death, the State Fire Marshal Office, connected OSHA, and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, conducted investigations, and the breathing apparatus was sent to the manufacturer for testing. Now, this is the reason why we're so rigorous with our training and our testing of our equipment. Like Chief Scott said the other day about our MSA bottles and our air packs and our masks, always got to be tested. There's a bunch of regulations in the state that mandates that we test them, how often we test them, what kind of tests we use on them. This could happen anytime, anywhere. It happens all the time. Could happen in Bonita anytime. We've had several firefighters here in Bonita that got hurt, some seriously. We've had firefighters die in Lee County and Collier County. But this is part of what happens here. But this is another reason why we do what we do around here and why it has to be that way. Any questions from anybody?
I did want to explain one thing about the air pack situation that he talked about. We had an air pack situation here, which our firefighters were getting ready to, I believe they were actually, it was active working structure fire, turned their bottles on and blew the O-rings. Obviously, that's a great concern to us. Their air just, boom, goes out within a split second, every single ounce of air. So we did a big investigation with our air packs, with our mounting systems, because, that's obviously a highly dangerous situation that we have to rectify immediately. And I don't know how many hours Deputy Chief Scott spent trying to figure out with our MSAs on what went wrong, because the worst case scenario for me as the chief would be having our firefighters go into a place and have something like that happen, and it has even happened here. Just fortunately, we've been fortunate enough not to have somebody seriously injured.
Yeah, if you're inside the structure when that happens, you're dead. That's it. You can't breathe that air. One breath and you're gone. So if the firefighters had been inside the structure when that happened, they wouldn't have been able to come out. So that's very important.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
can I ask you a question about last month's report?
Yes, sir.
That fire on Tarpon Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of intrigued by it, so I asked the chief to send me a report, and I read it. But the report started out by saying that you were at that same location earlier that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if this is the kind of thing that happens often. Was this some kind of an unusual event? Has
It
anybody
doesn't happen
determined
often.
How it happened, or?
It has yet to be determined. The state fire marshal is investigating it. It's very unusual. We were there earlier that day and put out a fire that was in a,
No, excuse me, but earlier that day, this was like 4 in the morning?
well, no, we were there earlier that same day. The big fire was at 4 in the morning. Earlier that day, I think it was around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, we were there and we
Okay, so
put out a
then
fire.
Basically the previous day then.
No, same day. Well, no, because at night, was it the same day?
Same duty day.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Our days
okay,
are,
all right.
duty days are. Yeah.
Your duty days are different
Yeah,
than the regular days.
it gets
Okay,
kinda
Now I
confusing.
got it, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
A different calendar date, same
Okay.
duty day, same crew. Yeah, about 15 hours later. And we called, the fire marshal was called the first time we were out there, and it was the stove had been left on. And now that's unusual in itself. And a pot caught on fire, caught the cabinets and the microwave on fire. The guys got there.
That was the first fire?
The first fire.
Okay, but it isn't kind of highly unusual that this would happen again?
Yes, it is.
But you say it's being investigated?
It is being investigated.
Okay.
The fire marshal was there the first time, called everything under control, out, everything. We called it out. We called it under control. Happened again. Fire marshal came out again. We don't know at this point why it started. Could be a rekindle, but that we don't know yet.
But
Or
we-
it could be something else. We're not sure.
We do have equipment that can identify like hotspots or something?
Yes, we have thermal imaging devices. We're very, very thorough with those. What we'll do is you ever see on TV, some people complain because they'll have a small kitchen fire, and then by the time we leave, the ceiling's down and the wall's open. We have to do that to see where the fire, if it has extended. Now, I know the first fire, we were inside the attic with thermal imagers. We checked the ceiling, we checked behind the walls. We do a very thorough search. And we were there, in fact, we were all there. And we felt pretty confident, very confident, we would not leave unless we knew it was out. Why it started again, how it started again, we don't know yet. That's under investigation. Like I said, it could be a rekindle, it could be something else. We don't know at this point what happened the second time. But all we know is that at Dark 30, it was on fire. And when we got there, it was through the roof, and it was total loss by the time we got there the second time. So,
Well, I'd be curious to see what that
yeah, we all are.
investigation
Yeah.
comes out. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you, Chief. Deputy Chief Rich Scott.
Hello again. I want to present something that we've been, I'm pretty excited about, we all are. It's a pediatric delivery system that we are rolling out and just starting training on. And I want to give you a little background information on how we treat pediatrics. Earlier today, we were talking about a Phoenix Award and a recipient here and the care we gave them, and we do that on a regular basis. Now, when we treat adults in cardiac arrest or seizures or diabetics and all these things, we're very used to it. We do it quite often. So we're pretty familiar with and ready to go with treating adults. Most of our medications are packaged to treat adults. Everything, you pretty much give the entire contents of the medication. Pediatrics is a completely different story. You have the same medications, but all the dosages are weight-based. So you have from a possible premature child that weighs 5-6 pounds all the way to a 11, 12, 13-year-old child. So where I'm going with this is it's very intimidating, and one of the most difficult things that a paramedic faces is how to treat a child when you walk in the house. Mom and dad are standing there, not to paint this horrible picture, but it's what we all dread. And they're screaming, and the kid is either just came out of the pool, they're having an allergic reaction, they're having an asthma attack. We're expected to act and treat the patient the same as we do adults right now, immediately. Now, there's something up on the board here, and the system is called HANTEVI, Pediatric Delivery System. What this is a custom-made book that we worked on. It takes our protocols, our medications, the percentages, and how the dosage is mixed, and we put it into this book so that when a paramedic shows up on a scene of an emergency for a pediatric patient, and as Assistant Chief DeWitt goes through, I want to explain this for just a minute or two. What you see on the board there is the list of medications that we are expected to and have to give in certain situations for children. There's 20 medications on that list. If you look over on the right two columns, there's a dose per kilogram and then the amount. Up until now, when you can pick any one of those medications. If you talked about atropine, which is the fifth one down. For a 2-year-old child that weighs approximately 12 kilograms, we would have to do the math in our heads of 0.02 milligrams per kilogram. Now, if you glance down that list, you'll notice that most all of those medications are dosed differently, depending on, it's all weight-based. So showing up, and sometimes there's 3 and 4 and 5 medications that we're expected to deliver to a child in a very short period of time. For instance, in an anaphylaxis reaction, which if we don't react and give the right dosage in a short period of time, that child may die. So that's the kind of math and things we'd have to process in our head immediately. So what this system does is twofold. Down the middle, where it says volume in the blue, is the volume, the amount, the quantity of medication that we now have to pull up in a syringe. It eliminates the math for each one of those medications that we have to calculate. So everything's in milliliters. The other half of this system is we have a new pediatric box, and it's packaged per age. In other words, we have a packet for a 6-month-old, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old. And all the right equipment, the right syringe, the right needle, the right intubation blade, the right intubation tube, everything you need to treat and deliver the medication and treat this child is in that pouch. So it's all readily available. So it's kind of a 2-part system. This is in a book form. It's going to is going to be in the box, the pediatric box, and another one will be in the truck, so that even on the way to the call, if it's a 2-year-old child like this, you can look it up and be prepared before you ever get out of the truck. So when you go in and mom and dad are standing there, you already know exactly what you got to do. If you have 2-3 people, you have assignments, and they're already pulling the right medications as the other is starting to assess the child. So for us, being that we don't treat children nearly as much as adults, it becomes a very overwhelming prospect. And we tend to spend a lot of money and a lot of worry and a lot of things to do this because we don't do it as often. So we think this tool is going to greatly enhance the confidence and the ability for our medics to treat children more efficiently, quicker. So like I said, we're just going to start the training on this next month. Dr. Rohde is aware. He's on board with it. We're pretty excited about it. And it's the kind of thing that you plan as much as you can for, because we do it less, and then you hope it never happens. That's the idea. So we're preparing ourselves as much as we possibly can, and then so anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. The training will start in April. and we'll probably roll it out by the end of the month. Oh, yeah. By the way, just so you all know, this is the, did you say the doc? Oh, yeah. All right, yeah, Assistant Chief DeWitt just reminded me of this, because he's been involved in this all along. Everybody has. The Dr. Antevi that created this system is a pediatric emergency room physician. And when I went to his presentation, and he was faced with the same kind of quandaries that we were. People would walk into the emergency room with their children, and he had the same, information he had to process in his head. And even though he's a physician, it still doesn't make it any easier. He did it on a more regular basis, but it was overwhelming to him. So he wrote this initially for the emergency room physicians, pediatric physicians, to let them treat these kids quicker. So that's where it started, and then he decided to roll it out into the public, into our emergency first responders. By the way, we are the first department in Lee County that are going down this route. The East Coast, it's fairly prevalent over there, and the department in Collier, but we're the first ones in Lee County that are taking this on. So, pretty excited about it. Does anybody have any questions about it?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, seems like big step forward.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
I did want to mention about that. I know Deputy Chief Scott talked about it, but this is a perfect scenario where you're talking about a highly stressful incident that we don't run many of. I've ran a handful in my life. So that's what you got to train the most on. You don't want to show up at something like that and not know what you're doing because of a lack of training and a lack of the ability to do that. So we just want to make sure the men and women on the line have that training and have this kind of equipment to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Local 3444. I know I jumped ahead, but
Okay.
usually you come right after the chief's report, I believe. So.
Thanks. I just got two announcements, or two items. The one, just to remind the commissioners, the next 3 Saturdays, the guys will be out in the street collecting for MDA. They'll be out in the streets from 9 till roughly 6 o'clock. So if you could pass the word. I know a lot of people don't know what we're out there for, but it's a 50-year tradition, over 50-year tradition that we partner with the MDA. So we'll be out there for the next 3 Saturdays. The other news I have is we had our Give Back softball tournament, and I'm happy or unhappy to report that we lost again, 11-10. In the bottom of the seventh, they scored 5 runs, went ahead 11-10, and then we couldn't score anything. Top of the 8th, so our record now is 1-5-1 against the Citrus Park All-Stars, and I got to give them credit. We're not sore losers. We publicly congratulate them, and hopefully, maybe next year, Commissioner Casilla will jump on board with us. Maybe we'll have a better shot. But
Thank you. Commissioner's business. Commissioner Casilla?
I'm just glad to see the quilt is up on the wall. It's a beautiful quilt. Thank you for putting it up, and I'm glad to see it.
Commissioner Murphy?
I want to give a personal thank you to Station 23 and Ambulance 13. This weekend they responded to my home and did a marvelous job helping take care of my wife. I want to thank them.
Commissioner McCourt? I have one thing this evening to dispel some rumors and untruths about fire hydrants in Bonita, and I did some contacting with BSU, and the area in question on Tarpon, the hydrant, the fire that you just talked about, the hydrant that was used to put that fire out was installed in 2014 and tested at just shy of 1,500 gallons a minute. BSU is, and the fire department working with them, are not dragging their feet. This is an ongoing project. Also, a very interesting point that needs to be given to the public is that if there was a fire hydrant in the front yard of a house, the first truck on scene always puts water on the fire from the tank, while the second truck hooks to the hydrant to replenish the water supply. So if a fire hydrant is 600 feet, 800 feet, whatever it is, in a matter of 4 or 5 minutes, a second truck can run the hose that needs to be run, but the first due unit always puts water on the fire from the truck. And so the hydrant issue in Bonita is really a non-issue. We have now tested just about, I believe, every hydrant. We're real close to being done with them, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was going to mention that in the last 2 months, January, February, we completed our hydrant maintenance for the year, over 2,300 hydrants. Every hydrant was seen, they were tested, flowed. They had grease fittings put on them if they needed them, and whatever needed to be done. So they're all done.
All right, thank you. And the one on Tarpon where it came into question and a house burned down because of lack of hydrants was actually a new hydrant, and there has never been or will there ever be an issue with putting water on a fire. And I just want to make that clear so that people that live in that area, in that neighborhood, don't have the concern that there's a story going around that there's not enough hydrants and not enough protection for fire. And according to the chief and I both talked to the guy who's in charge of that at BSU, and everything that needs to be upgraded is in a process, but that area has been already upgraded. So I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
How much water is in that truck?
Between 750 and 1,000 gallons.
And how long does that take to run out of hose?
Depends on size of the hose. And but I would say probably you're pumping out 150 gallons a minute off a hose until such time you can get the hydrant to replenish that water.
So that gives you the 5 minutes or so?
Easily.
Yeah.
Yes, easily. And it's been my understanding, in having some meetings with the chief, to check to see if we've ever had, because it's a serious issue if we ever have had a problem. And I have been told that we've never had a problem with water at any structure fire we've ever been at. And the reason for that is that, again, the first truck always has between 750 and 1,000 gallons of water on it. And the second due truck is wrapping the hydrant and running a supply line to that first truck. So I'd like to put anybody who has any fears or questions at ease about that, because, God forbid, in the event of a fire, no matter where it is, we do have the capabilities to put all the water on that we need.
If I may, sir, real quick.
Yes, sir.
It's very unusual for an engine, like you see sometimes in the movies, to wrap a fire engine and drive to the fire. They don't, in today's operations, we don't stop, wrap a hydrant, and peel hose off 500, 600, 700, 800,000 feet to the fire. That takes too much time. The first engine goes directly to the front of the building or passes the front of the building, takes a look at the building, and pulls a line and starts putting water on immediately from the tank. Once the water is already flowing, then the hydrant hookup takes place. That's the way the operations is working. It's highly unusual, and that would be up to the lieutenant to determine. And if he did it, I'm sure Deputy Chief Giuliano would want to know why he stopped to catch a hydrant before getting water on the fire as soon as possible. So just so you're familiar with some of the operations.
That's all I have. I don't have any cards for public input. Does anybody have anything to say?
I do have one thing I neglected to say in my report. One other thing that did happen last month at the Bonita Springs Fire Department is we had the emergency medical council for children's come in here, and we did probably a once in a lifetime. It's called a pig lab. They spent the day here. 35 students, limited to 35 students. It was done with a grant through the state of Florida. And we had nurses from Lee Memorial Health Systems, from Golisano in here, from North Collier, fire departments from Northport, San Carlos Park, and North Naples come in here. And they spent a day and basically went over the anatomy and physiology from the heart, breaking down the heart, cutting the heart open, and doing the same thing with the lungs and how they inflate it and how it works, how to intubate them. It was basically a once-in-a-lifetime type of class that we
There was
offered here.
some good coverage in the newspaper about that, too. I
So-
saw a nice article about that.
So I apologize, I neglected that on my report.
Thank you.
Yes, Alex Grant, 11851 East Terry Street. Is that what you just said, reverse lay, when you do that, the first engine comes in, lays, let's say, inch and inch and a half or inch and three-quarter line, hand line, and then the second engine runs the 5-inch supply line to the hydrant, and then to the truck, right? To the first truck? Is that a reverse lay?
A reverse lay
Or
is...
there's a
reverse
reverse
is-
lay and a forward lay.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, there's two lays. A reverse lay is from the truck to the hydrant.
Truck to the hydrant.
Right.
That's the second truck, the second engine
No.
that does.
No. The second engine, what they will do is the truck will be at the fire, and the second engine will catch a hydrant and forward lay. it in.
Forward,
Yes.
okay, so that's a
They
forward.
can't, depends on which way they're coming.
So that's a forward.
Depends on which way they're
forward
coming.
lay.
Yes, sir. They could
Okay,
do forward
forward
or
lay.
reverse lay. It's
Sorry.
up to the officer in charge.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Deborah McLean, publisher, the Banana Peel and City Editor. I've been following the news here in Bonita for 16 years and started really concentrating equally on city, but added the fire district in 2008. And I would like to go on record, because now I'm able to speak to other fire districts, that this district always leads the way, whether it's the paramedic training by Dr. Rohde, or the information on the pediatrics medicine. We are always first in our city. We're always the first. It's not a cutting edge, it is the edge, state of the art in fire control and in paramedics and in EMT. And tonight was very interesting. I'm glad that the fire hydrant fantasy has been resolved and reality has set in. And I'm glad that the Tarpon Road fire hydrant and the dual cause were discussed openly. And I'm just really proud to be part of Bonita Springs, and I'd like this fire district for setting the bar higher for the other districts, and that includes Collier County, especially with the 911 work on the radio towers and the golf courses. I've never seen a district, and I'm seeing them all now, that is always in front, and the others follow. So thank you for everything that you do for this community.
Thank you.
Ed Fitzgerald. Did I just hear that we don't need hydrants anymore? We now have enough water in the trucks, we don't need hydrants. There's no reason to have them.
I'm not sure that was said, Ed.
That was never
Well,
said.
No, the first truck,
Well, let me,
what I said was the first truck puts water on, the second truck hooks to the hydrant and resupplies the first truck. So, of course we need hydrants. Nowhere in what I just said did I say we
I think
didn't
you
need.
said it didn't make any difference we had a hydrant or not. Am I correct that we send people in the interior of buildings on fire with hose from the interior of the truck? You don't have to be hooked up to a hydrant. We order people, and we have 2 in, 2 out. We only have 2 trucks. We have enough people to send into the building. We send them in with booster hose.
If there's life in danger, yes.
As far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, there is a national standard on where hydrants should be. Every 600 feet residential spacing, and in commercial spacing, every 400 feet. Is that what we have up in Tarpon Drive?
I would have to measure the
Yeah.
hydrants exactly.
Well,
I'd have to see that regulation too.
Yeah.
it's a national standard. This all started many, many years ago when we had a fire in the same area and we burned the building down. At that time, this department admitted there was 1,000 feet from the first hydrant, and that was the reason we lost the building. As a result of that, I went to BSU with Chief Kinsey, and I asked them about the spacing of the hydrants and thought we didn't have enough. And I still don't think we have enough. And I still think we have hydrants, we should have hydrants, and I don't think we should send people in the interior of a building with booster hose. Especially when you have a 2 in and 2 out. You only have 2 trucks, you got 6 men there, already committed 4 to that one space.
What do you consider booster hose?
What is booster hose?
What do you consider booster hose?
Booster hose is 1 1/4. It can be, you people send them in with, what size do you send them in with?
1 3/4, as far as I know. That's
1 3/4.
1 3/4. That's not booster hose.
Yeah, it's booster water though.
No.
I also like to comment that I don't ever remember, and I was here then, I don't ever remember the department saying that house burned down because of lack of water. I want to correct that for the record, because that's just not true.
Well, we went to BSU, myself and Chief Kinsey, and we addressed the hydrant issue. And Fred Parton, who was the director, and Chief Kinsey agreed that we didn't have enough hydrants in the area, and that Chief Kinsey and Fred Parton would work on it and start putting in hydrants, and they would present a plan to Chief Fernandez where the hydrants would go, when they would start going, and what areas. I asked at one of the meetings for that plan. We never had this for 10 years, it's only come up recently. You want to end me?
I'll give you 30 more seconds.
Give me as much as I need to, just end me.
Or, okay, then I end you.
Would you begin me? Ron Pure, Bonita Springs. Is this on rollers or? Yes, sir. Oh, okay. First of all, I'm sorry I was late to hear that you guys talked about the investigation that was discussed last week regarding the election and campaigning. I want to point out to you, Chief, because we've talked about this kind of stuff in the past, that I was not able to access the agenda for tonight's meeting on the website. I was not able to get the meeting minutes of the last meeting on the website. I'd also like to bring up once again the possibility of getting input for the public at the beginning of the meetings as well as the end. I think it's good public relations, and keep the door as wide open as possible and enable those people that come in at the get-go and would like to address those things that may be on your agenda.
If I may interject there, we do that at the beginning of the meeting when we have items that we're going to be voting on that need public input at the beginning, but tonight there weren't any.
Well, I would think that public input at the beginning of any meeting is of great value, particularly to the public. I'd like to also ask about making an arrangement with the city so that your schedule of when your meeting DVD appears on the station, Channel 98, I think it is, that they get back to providing the public a schedule of all of the programming, including your own, because it used to be available. It is no longer on the website of the city. And I'd like to ask a direct question.
I think it is still on at 8 o'clock on Monday nights, I believe. Is that correct, Antonio?
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking for a schedule of all programming in the city to include the Bonita Springs Fire District as well, that you can look at it and see that, for example, Thursday is a time to watch whatever, the Bonita Springs Fire District meeting.
Well, that would be a question you'd have to ask the city. We don't.
Well, I would hope that you guys would support that. At any rate, I'd like to ask you one question, and this is about the election and the campaign business. There was something mentioned in the article in the Bonita Daily News a month or more ago about the contributions that were made to the PAC. Would you please answer me tonight with respect to, is there an arrangement, or was there an arrangement within the district to provide payroll services in any way, shape, or form that automatically deducted from the payroll or the paycheck. Do you have the question?
Yes, I do have the question.
Okay. Could you answer it?
There was a deduction for that.
There was a deduction?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more public input? Meeting adjourned.